Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Real Time, where we are live talking about film and television and everything in between. Today's episode is very special because we have a very awesome guest, Mr. V1Tech himself, the CEO, and we're going to be talking about how you can build your own PC of a lifetime that's mainly focused on video editing. So let's get right into it. Again, hello everybody, and thank you all so much for tuning in. My name is Mustafa Talib with Cinema King Productions, and today, like I said, we have a very special guest, the CEO of V1Tech, Mr. Hassan, and we're going to be talking about how you can build your dream video editing machine. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's introduce Mr. Hassan. What's up, my dude?
How's it going, man? Thanks for
Good.
having
How are you?
me.
Thank you
Doing great.
for being on. Thank you for being on. So let's dive right into it, shall we? First, let's talk about how you became into becoming the CEO of V1Tech. Like, where did it come from? How did it all happen?
I mean, it's kind of a long story, but I'll kind of give you the summary. The way I got into computers in general, my father's actually a network engineer, and
Mm-hmm.
growing up, I would always be around computers. And so the way I got into it as a business is he would actually have all his friends always, giving them their computer to fix anytime they had a
Mm-hmm.
problem. And
Yeah.
he would get really annoyed with it. So he actually just was like, all right, this is how you do basic stuff. If you help me, fix these computers, I'll give you like $20 per one. Of course, as like a 12-year-old, that was insane amount of money.
Of
Um,
course.
so yeah, I was all over it. Plus, it was fun. Like I already enjoyed g- getting the permission to get access to the computer. So the fact
Mm-hmm.
that this gave me more access, I was all for it. And from there, I actually started getting really good at repairing computers and going above and beyond what my father was teaching me by just, Googling stuff and YouTubing things and trying things to the point where in middle school, I was going on Craigslist and advertising like my computer repair business. But I
Wow.
wasn't I wasn't thinking of it as like a business. I was just thinking of it as like an extra way of making money to buy things
Yeah.
I wanted, like a new PlayStation game or
Right.
um, you know, a subscription to RuneScape. But my parents wouldn't let me, they wouldn't pay for that kind of stuff.
Right.
So if I wanted to get it, I had to kind of hustle for it. But I didn't, I wasn't really thinking of it as an entrepreneurial sense. I was just kind of like, this is what I want. This is how I have to get it. So
Mm-hmm.
um, that kind of kickstarted me getting into computers. And then I actually I wanted to. I got my IT certifications really early on. Like I got A+ in network, CCNA, CCNP before I even graduated high school. And my plan was to go straight into IT because that's always
Right.
what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go to college. I was like, there was no point of it for what I'm doing, what I know. There's not
Yeah.
a college career path to go down to get to where I wanted to be. So I was like, okay, college isn't for me, but of course my parents were all for sending me that direction. So I
Yeah.
was going to community college to start because I didn't want to blow a ton of money. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was also working at Micro Center. It was kind of like the first good IT related computer job I could get for my age. At
Yeah.
18, I wasn't really able to straight up go work for Cisco. They were just like, you need work
Yeah.
experience, all
Obviously.
this jazz. I was like, well, I have work experience. I've been repairing computers for 4 years. And they're like, no, from someone else. We need experience from someone else. I was like, okay, fine. So I got a job at Micro Center. I worked there for about a year while I was going to school. And during that time, I had started V1Tech, but it was kind of my online handle for my PC modding hobby. It was a
Mm-hmm.
hobby at the time where I like to just trick out my own computer.
Right.
And there's an event here in Dallas called QuakeCon. It happens every year. It's one of the biggest LANs of North America with over 3,000 attendees. A bunch of
Right.
people just bring their computers. You play games together in a LAN environment. And I just I love that event so much. And the community part of it, bringing your own computer, there was a lot of people who would trick it out. for attention or just like have the coolest computer. And of course, I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So I learned a lot about just tricking out your computer, putting lights in it, cutting windows, cable managing, custom sleeving, water cooling.
So it's all about like the aesthetics of it, and of course being a
Yeah, even
powerful
though like a
PC
lot of that
itself.
stuff can be performance based, I was doing it for the aesthetics.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
water cooling, I was like, how can I make this water cooling look super good? Not,
Right.
you know. So I was getting color dyes and going into hard tubing right away, and I kind of accelerated my learning in the modding area just for that event. Spent the whole year working on like my computer. I took it
Mhm.
there, not thinking anything of it other than like people are gonna give me props,
Mhm.
and maybe I could advertise my repair business or help people out or whatever, funnel people to go buy from me at Micro Center for commission.
Mhm.
And I actually won the modding contest there. I got second place. I say I won. I got
Okay,
second.
but I mean that's still good.
It's still really good, and I didn't even know there was a contest. So I got to be on stage for that. But the coolest thing about it is all the components that I was using in the computer. They had like reps at the event for those brands that
Right.
stopped by and gave me their business card and were like, "We want to sponsor you. We want you to build a computer for our trade show events." All this jazz. And then from winning second, I started getting a lot of people interested in working with me on
Wow.
the coding side of things.
Right. So it's just like one little thing of exposure that you did on your own. It was just like this is my hobby. I love doing it. It's my art, and because you got that exposure, then just it started flooding. Right.
Right. And I would always show off to my friends like the computers that I built.
Mhm.
And of course, I'd always have friends wanting me to build their computers and make them to do trade show builds for these events from big brand companies. And just from they're not only paying me to go to these shows and then have a computer in there, but they're
Mhm.
putting their marketing behind it and it's funneling into my Instagram. So I'm getting these massive companies to pretty much promote me for not just for free, but they're paying me for that. Uh,
Right. It's your
and
service.
I'm at these events. So every time I go to these events, I would just go around all the booths, and I would just be like, "See what I did for that company? I could do it for you."
Wow.
Because and essentially, it's an art piece that would draw people into the booth.
Of
So it
course.
had a lot of marketing value, especially for these events.
Mhm.
Um, Especially the way I would trick them out and make them all high end. I could theme them very well to whatever their brand was, or whether it was a game that was coming out, or a company. Um, and I was really good at it from an artistic perspective. So that started taking off, and there aren't very many people who do that at a professional level in the industry.
Right.
So I got to meet all of the top modders just going to like CES and PAX events,
Mhm.
QuakeCon, every couple months, and it's like a big project every now and then, but it wasn't steady, right? It wasn't like a steady
Right.
source of income that I could drop out of school or quit my job for.
Yeah.
Um, but I, I created my first product, which was a GPU backplate, just by people kind of requesting. Like they would see my mods and be like, "Hey, I saw you made that piece. Could you make that for my computer?" And so this
Right.
wasn't like a huge project from a big company. It was just a small piece for an individual PC builder. And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I was hand cutting these things in my
Mhm.
garage for like $60 a pop, and it would take me half a day to do each one.
Mhm.
And then I started getting a lot of requests. So I was like, there's got to be a simpler way. I started outsourcing to a local trophy laser engrave shop who could laser cut the pieces for me quicker and better quality.
Right.
So then I would just focus on the design aspect. And then, slowly but surely now we're a big company where we do a lot of different modding accessories for PC builders to trick out their computer. The idea of it is like, okay, I want to make it as easy as possible for anyone, whether it's your first time building a computer, you should
Yeah.
be able to make something that looks like what I was able to do trade show builds for. Something I
Mhm.
would commission for like 6 grand and take me hundreds of hours. You can
Mhm.
now do for like $100 or $200 max in 30 minutes.
Right.
So that's kind of
Right.
like the value prop that I was going down for V1Tech, and
And
uh,
so basically, like from there, it became a niche, right?
yeah,
Like,
much
people
so.
were really like it was you were entering a space that wasn't as popular, but because of the recognition, but because of just I guess being at the right place at the right time,
Yeah.
and people seeing what you could offer, they were like, "Whoa, that looks so freaking cool. Let me get into that." And then you were there to supply that demand.
Yeah, and then I also learned like from where, you know, for me being at an event or in a build or whatever, like when I would get recognized for these things and my DMs would fill up and like things would spike, I'd figure out those patterns and just kind of like do that more often. So it was being at the right place at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the first time, but then after that, I kind of engineered it a little bit.
Of
Uh,
course,
we're
like as a business.
able to scale it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Now it's a full time business. I haven't, I dropped out of college halfway through my junior year,
Oh,
and then I quit Micro Center in 2014, and I've been doing
and you
V1Tech full time ever since.
that's incredible. That is amazing. So you didn't really see yourself becoming an entrepreneur, but it just happened,
I mean, yeah, I would say so. I think I just always had kind of an entrepreneurial method to how I did everything, and so it's
right?
just like it was natural for me to do. I think what I did. Um, but I wasn't really thinking of it like, oh, I'm gonna quit school and start a business. It was just kind of like
Yeah,
this was, this took off, so let's run with it.
for sure. And I think that's really really interesting, like how things just unfold that way. Like you go in with the plan, but then things just change in your benefit, and then you end up just rolling with the punches and just going head on, right?
Yeah, I think in business, a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot by trying to be too passionate about one thing specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and then like they don't want to change or pivot or adapt in any shape or way or form, and so they actually sacrifice opportunities in in for like doing what they want exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always kind of like had a general, thing of, I like business, I like computers, I like this kind of stuff. I like a lot of other things too, but I never really
Yeah,
try to make money in like, other hobbies. This is just kind of like
right,
made the most sense where I was going, and
for sure.
yeah, it just worked out.
Do you ever get tired of it?
Yeah, of course.
I'm
You
sure.
know, even now, like right now, we're really backlogged. It's really like I'm actually at the office right now. This is V1Tech Studio on a
Yeah.
Saturday. I might be here tomorrow. We have a night shift that comes in, so some days
Oh,
I'm in from 9 a.m. to midnight, Monday through
wow.
Friday. So it's not like vacation every day, like some
Right.
people
It's
make it
hustle.
seem.
It's grinding.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. Luckily, I have enough passion for it, and I like it enough that it's something I'm willing to work hard for. Um, and it does have high reward as well. Like long term, I can see it being computers for fun every
Yeah.
day, do whatever I want. It's like, okay, if the laser goes down and I have to replace a part on it and we're behind on orders, I got to figure out how to drive over to the manufacturer 6 hours away,
Mm-hmm.
pay a bunch of money, spend a lot of time figuring out how to reinstall it, bring it back, install that, figure out, okay, we got to hire somebody, we got to go on all these different places, list job listings, interview, you know,
Yeah.
it's just like one thing after the next, just like problem solving, all kinds of stuff. But that's
Right.
part of growing a business. It's not just like, and I kind of I've always been okay with those kind of things. I think a lot of people go into business thinking they're gonna be able to set their own schedule.
Yeah.
They're gonna be able to do what they want, hire people to do what they don't want to do. But
Right.
that's not the case. You just have to. I've always been like with the computer repair thing since I was little. There's a problem, you just figure it out, you look it up, you ask people, you get help,
Mm-hmm.
you just get it done. And whatever it is, day to day, that's what I'm working on. There's never like, I'm just gonna relax today and see what happens and
Right.
in the money. It's
Yeah.
never like that. It's just like, okay, well, we solved one problem out of 15, and 15 more have joined the list. what's the
Right.
priority, and how do we solve these as quickly as possible? Just
Right. So
no.
it's just like running a business is not. I feel like in the last maybe couple of years, right, this push of entrepreneurship and work really hard in the beginning, but they don't understand how much work it really does take and how much brain power it really takes, and then they get burnt out, and then they just end up
Yeah,
failing,
it
right?
looks really glamorous
Right.
from
Like,
social
oh,
media.
I'm flying here, I'm going here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like, yeah, that's the PR side of things, but then behind all that is the sweat, the blood, the tears of trying to make your business work because, you love what you're doing, but you also got to make money so you can survive, right? So,
And, it's crazy. My,
yeah.
my business is very niche, but
Yeah.
in a sense, I feel like I'm lucky with that because there isn't much competition. It's not as difficult for me to market my product. It's very unique. It has a lot of value, and it just kind of came naturally and organically. But a lot of people, th- it, I didn't like. I didn't come into the business thinking I was going to make, this successful product, whatever it is
Yeah.
that does well. Because I have every year I try to create a new great, successful product, and I lose a lot of money on, a bunch of them before I get one that sticks, and I might not
Mm-hmm.
even get one that sticks. So I might, have a hard time. But for people just starting, you have to really look at like what's the minimum viable product that you can possibly, at time, and is it something that you're going to be able to, delegate? Like
Yeah.
scaling a business is insanely difficult, and it takes a lot of work, and it's not very probable for it to ever even happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So let's shift gears a little bit here and
Sure.
talk about like, what big projects have you worked on that you got recognized for that, in return scaled your business?
Um, I would say I can't point to one thing ever. Like it's just I would it's really hmm like I would say
I would
whenever like, a big
Go ahead.
YouTuber would work with us, like someone with a
Right.
huge influence,
Yeah.
like reaches out to us and says, "Hey, we want to work with you,"
Mm-hmm.
and we work with them. They get a video out. We would see a giant spike, maybe the next couple days,
Mm-hmm.
and then that would leave some, breadcrumb uh,
Impressions.
over the long term, right? We see a
Yeah.
big spike immediately, but then over the long term, from that one project, it'll give us like let's make it easy for math. Let's say we do a big project and it gives us 10 customers the next day, and then it gives us a customer every week forever.
Mm-hmm.
The cool thing is, since like this didn't happen overnight, it's been 7 years in the
Mm-hmm.
business. So we've been doing big projects like that over and over with the same people and different people, and always looking for more influencers to work with, more events to go to, more things to do, and slowly, it's becoming bigger and bigger, and it's kind of over the long term, it looks exponential, but it is very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think there's ever like we kind of like grow by 50% year over year, which is really good.
Yeah.
But the amount of effort it takes to get to each year is, it quadruples each year. So the first year it was just me. Now it's, 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
Last year it was 4 people. The year before that it was two.
Oh,
The
so
2 years before that
literally exponential.
it is exponential in terms of the work. The
Yeah.
reward is about 50%, but the amount of work to get that reward is more exponential than the reward.
Wow.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah,
So
for
a lot of
sure, for
people don't
sure.
see that either. They think, okay, Mark Zuckerberg, he went from starting Facebook in his dorm room, and now it's hundreds of billions of dollars. It's like, no, it's
Right.
taken them 30 years, and every year they've had to 10x their back end to be able to keep it going.
Right.
And
Right.
that's an anomaly.
Yeah. So let's talk about PC building for a little bit. First
Yeah.
of all, um, Mac or PC?
I mean, it depends what you're using it for. I actually don't have like a lot of people think I'm gonna be like hardcore PC and Android and fuck Apple or whatever. Can I curse on here? I didn't mean to.
Well, we're
Uh,
live, so sorry everybody.
I'm sorry for any children. If I guess if you think words are bad and it breaks your fast, I'm sorry about that too. Um, but yeah, I'm not that way. I think Apple has a lot of value. Like clearly they
Hmm.
do. They're a massive company. They're one of the most successful in the world. And then same with when Windows has a lot of issues, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and so
So
does
let me
Android.
ask. So let me ask in terms of specifically because like this is real time, right? So we're talking
Yeah.
about film, television. So let's talk about video
All
editing, right? Like you
right.
have to have your workflow. These cameras are coming out with 4K, footage and high end quality in terms of audio as well. You want to have a computer that can process everything flawlessly, so that way your workflow is just much more streamlined and there's a better quick turnaround, etc. There's pros and cons for both Mac and PC. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
So first thing I'm gonna say is the best thing to use is what you have the most experience in.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a computer or software, doesn't matter. If if you have like you should adapt maybe to what's better. If it's a huge gap
Mm-hmm.
um, over the next couple years, but typically if you spent your whole childhood using Mac, you're just gonna want to get the best Mac you can afford. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing for PC. Now, if we get granular on like, if you have all the money in the world, it doesn't matter, right? You can
Right.
get, $100,000 Mac Pro if you want to, and you can get $100,000 PC if you want to. They both exist,
Right.
and I'm sure both of them will work for everything you want to do because they're 100 grand.
Yeah. Can make coffee with it.
Right. Now, if you're not partial to either one, you're quick to learn either one, and it doesn't matter. Um, I've seen a lot of good I've seen how great like Final Cut is for editing really high res stuff on a low
Mm-hmm.
budget. Like if you're working with 6K 8K footage and you're having a hard time doing it on Premiere on a PC, going to a Mac and running it on Final Cut, apparently it's really software optimized to handle high res stuff
Right.
without with little hardware, which is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, if you use Premiere on a PC, your Premiere scales very linearly with hardware. So you're going to spend more to get higher end hardware on a Mac than you are on a PC. So just dollar for dollar, you're going to get more performance out of a PC. The
Right.
usability is all up to however you're good at the software or what tools you want to use. But I think that's really as basic as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, so for Mac, like if you're getting a if you're on a PC and you're a video editor and you
Yeah.
think going to the Mac is going to help you, but you're solely on Premiere or DaVinci Resolve or Vegas or whatever, any pretty much any software,
Mm-hmm.
you're shooting yourself in the foot a little bit in terms of performance for dollar, because you're just always going to get more hardware for your buck on the PC side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you got a 4K camera because they're now ready available and you're having a hard time, you don't want to wait for proxying your footage.
Yeah.
You're having a hard time editing that footage at the full res, and you're willing to learn how to use Apple, it's actually Final Cut's a good option for you for quick things. And it's
I've
also,
been considering it.
yeah, I mean, I literally went out and bought an iMac just to try it because I have like at the office, I have a 14 core Intel Extreme with 128 gigs of RAM and a
Yeah.
high end GPU, and I was having trouble editing my 4K footage off my DH5. It's basic, I would say like low grade prosumer stuff.
Right.
But I was having trouble on it, and I was like watching these videos on people building these ultimate systems that pretty much had the same specs or worse than what I had, and they were editing 8K, 4K footage. And I was like, they're proxying it still. They have to wait a long time,
Yeah.
or someone who literally just wants to make something for Instagram or Facebook or YouTube
Yeah.
real quick. I don't want to spend, a day on a video. I want to spend like 30 minutes. What's the quickest thing I could do? And it turned out to be Final Cut. So I got a Mac and I started learning how to use it. It
Mm-hmm.
was really great for like a couple of days before I just hated using it just for the OS and whatnot. I'm just not used to it.
Sure.
Where I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna sell this and outsource my video editing for
There
now.
you go. So real quick, we do have some comments coming in. Geek Simon
Sure.
says, "Hey," and he says, "Intel sucks." And then we have my boy Ibrahim who says, "Hi," and he says, "Your Instagram is out of this world, and it's fire." So, thanks, Ibrahim. Um, so next question. Um, in terms of PC, and actually we're going to talk about both as quickly as we can. So in terms of PC,
Yeah.
what would you recommend for the best um, build for the bank for video editing?
So for video editing specifically,
Yes.
actually, I would. Okay, so right now, it changes every day. Whatever I tell you right here in this video, 6 months
Hmm.
from now will be irrelevant. Um, the guy said Intel sucks. Right now, I would say AMD is winning when it comes to CPUs on video editing side of things, especially for the bang for the buck. But that goes and comes. I mean, I've seen it flip flop every single year for the past 10 years.
Just out
Uh,
of competition, right?
so I don't care about brands so much. It's hardware at the end of the day. It's silicon that you're paying for and
Hmm.
transistors. Whoever's doing it fastest for the lowest amount of dollars today is going to be who I think you should pick. But I don't think you should really argue that one's a less value than the other. They both have different benefits as well, just like Apple and Windows.
Right.
Um, but right now, what's looking really good, depending on your budget, is anything from the 3600X lineup all the way to the 3950X on the AMD Ryzen processor side of things. Because you can get up to, I believe it's 16 cores and 32 threads on a consumer grade desktop, not an extreme edition or anything like that. So for like under $500 for a CPU and motherboard combo, which is insane, you can
Hmm.
have a really beast of a video editing monster. Like last year, this would have cost you double
Oh wow.
uh, for the same amount of like render speeds and footage that you can push, stuff like that. And it scales also not just for video editing, but for anything that CPU intensive, whether that be rendering or modeling. I know we're just talking
Right.
about video editing, but when
Yeah.
it's anything CPU intensive, AMD right now, if, for the best bang for the buck, getting 10th gen Intel processors look really strong. They're gonna be able to video edit it everything you want very well. They're
Hmm.
gonna win a little bit if you stream. If you ever do any kind of streaming like we are now
Yeah.
live, it can help you there. Although the AMD is still gonna do really well, but the AMD is gonna win when it comes to sheer render performance.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so I would lean
Okay.
towards that area for RAM. Uh, you know, it doesn't really. I would say the more capacity, the better. You do want to go for at least 2 sticks of RAM in your system.
Hmm.
The GPU isn't mattering so much as long as it can support NVIDIA rendering or uh,
Right.
AMD's whatever. You can get a $150 to $200 graphics card, and it's going to perform. It's going to help your video editing just as much as $1,000 graphics card would. Like there isn't
Oh.
really a huge change there, and I'm quoting dollar price points because
Yeah.
I don't know like what the models are today that fit
Yeah.
those price points, but whatever it is, that's probably what you're going to be going for.
Okay. So that's PC. So then, how would you
Yeah.
translate that over to Mac?
Uh,
Or is
so
it just hard just because
okay,
it's not the same?
no, it's not the same, and it is. If we're talking about Premiere,
Hmm.
um,
Like I
I'm
use
pretty
Premiere on my Mac.
okay. If you're gonna be running Premiere on your Mac, I would say like you're not gonna get the best. You're not gonna get nearly the same uh, render performance per dollar as you are on PC. So it's gonna go down to what you can afford. I would say the iMac, like the 5K iMac Pros that start at like 4 grand or 5 grand.
Yeah.
those aren't a bad value in terms of they have 10 gig Ethernet built in. They have a 5K display on them. So like both those things together right there is like $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
And the hardware they have in them is actually pretty good for the dollar. The lower end iMacs that go for 1,000 to I guess three that still have the
Mm-hmm.
5K display are also pretty decent. If you're going for a laptop, a MacBook Pro, whatever the highest spec you can get.
Right.
For Premiere, you
No,
can really the big tower, the iMac, the Pro, I believe, not the iMac, the Mac Pro.
Mac Pro, yeah.
Yeah. The If you look at the hardware on that, you can get the basic level entry on that computer, and it's almost the same as building it yourself, like as a PC. The hardware is actually pretty price competitive for that low spec model, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can actually go and get your own ECC DDR4 memory and populate it for up to a terabyte if you want to, secondhand. And
Right.
it's really easy to install that stuff. So if you want to save like 2-3 grand instead of going through the configurator, you could do that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The solid state drive you do have to get from Apple, so go crazy on whatever they have.
Yeah.
Um, and then the CPU is also somewhat price competitive, considering if you do want to just install your own CPU, it's a little bit trickier, and you're gonna have to sell the one that you get from Apple to kind of make up for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, whatever in the middle is probably the best, but you can go all out on that too, and it's gonna help you in Premiere.
Okay.
Um, and the GPU the GPU on that tower or any of the Macs are really good to upgrade if you're using Final Cut, because that's kind of how
Right.
they engineered their software to be able to perform so well. Is
Yeah.
they actually Final Cut is really scales really well with your GPU hardware versus
Mm-hmm.
every other software doesn't. Um, so that's kind of the advantage. If you get Final Cut on a Mac, you can
Mm-hmm.
get a MacBook Pro, like a laptop, and edit
Yeah.
4K footage on it just fine. Save a
Right.
ton
And
of
that's the thing. Like, in my experience, I mean, I was PC at first, and then I did switch over to Mac. When was it? It was like the early 2010s. I got my first 21 and a half inch iMac used, but it was still, it was a good deal that I got because I wanted to, start doing more video editing and things like that as I was getting into my profession. And the thing is, I've always used Premiere from way back when, like Adobe Premiere 6.0. And then from there, just every time they did an update, the CS2 and then CS6 or, and everything in between, like I've always just been using Premiere. And then I come across Final Cut. I remember I opened it once and I was like, nope. And I just shut it off immediately because it was too unfamiliar.
Yeah,
But
it goes back to the saying like you gotta use what you know.
right.
Like
And so then I've been heavily thinking about this for like the past year. Like, should I, because I have a Mac with decent specs, and oddly enough, like I have Premiere and I edit in 4K, releasing content and, for my clients, their videos as well. And sometimes it'll play back smoothly. Sometimes I do need to, drop down the playback resolution just so I can get that better performance. Render times are pretty okay. I'm not like too crazy about that. But if I did switch over to Final Cut, do you think it would obviously exponentially uh, make my turnaround much faster?
not at first. The reason is because you're just so much faster at using Premiere. You know how to use the Mac, so you're
Yeah.
not gonna switch to PC. That's what you're familiar with. You can actually probably edit faster than anyone else using like if they're just getting to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and they get the best stuff, you're still going to be faster because you're familiar with the tools that you have.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think if you slowly try to learn Final Cut, it could actually improve your workflow. I don't know how much though, because I don't know how frequently you're launching videos. Like a lot of people are fine with rendering their videos overnight if they take 6 hours. It
Right.
doesn't affect their schedule at all, and that could be you. Some people do need to render their videos in 15 minutes, so they got to get whatever can do that in 15 minutes. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
and yeah, so it's really based off your, I guess, pipeline for how you produce content, how you do it. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what, it would make whatever you're doing now faster. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't know how much that would really matter to you. You know what I mean?
Right. So it's always a personalized, like individual answer. It's never a generic thing.
Yeah, like you might actually spend more time on a project on Premiere, but you'll enjoy it more, even though like
Right.
Final Cut might get faster to you, but you just hate using it.
Yeah.
So it's really like,
It's a toss up in the air of like
yeah,
just
it is.
depending on what. So then let's kind of
It's
go
a
right
lot.
in the middle.
It's a
What
lot
do
of
you think
activation.
about? Yeah, it is. Let's talk about the middle. What do you think about Hackintoshes?
Here's the thing. I don't I don't get it. If you're a Premiere editor like yourself, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
great because you're gonna get the same bang for the buck on the hardware as you do a PC user, but you get the Windows experience. I mean, you get the Apple experience of the OS and stuff,
Right.
which you're familiar with. So I think there it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
The thing that doesn't make sense is if you're a Final Cut editor, uh, building a Hackintosh does not work with those software advantages that Apple has proprietarily built into their computers.
Mm-hmm.
So Final Cut will actually not scale with a PC hardware the same way it does on Apple's hardware. So if
Would
you're a Final Cut editor, I would actually stick to just buying straight from Apple.
right.
If you're like yourself, a Premiere editor on Apple, a Hackintosh actually makes a lot of sense.
So I'm hearing you, and I've been really considering it, and I know we've talked about like I wanted to collab with you, and building a PC that can do Hackintosh and all that good stuff. But what are the drawbacks of having Hackintosh in terms of the other functionalities of uh, the computer besides video editing?
Um, well, you're not going to be able to game on it. I feel like that's any Mac though, right?
Sure.
You're making it into a Mac. The drawback of getting like building a Hackintosh over buying a Mac for Premiere, that's obviously the pro is cost savings,
Mm-hmm.
but the negative is going to be support. You're not going to get the latest driver updates. You might have issues that you have to spend half a day troubleshooting sometimes. So it's going to save you a lot of maybe render performance overall, but you will have some frustrating times probably. I'm not saying you will. It's just it's more likely to happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so you are taking some risk because it's not supported by Apple. Apple doesn't like you doing it. So
Right.
they're obviously actively trying to make it more complicated for you, and they're not supporting it from a software standpoint either, where you can just get updates all the time and everything just works
Mm-hmm.
out the door. Um, it's kind of relying on a back end group of people who are actively trying to support it and make it work and release stuff for you. And there's a huge community behind that now.
Absolutely, and
Uh,
I've seen the forums, and it's like it's amazing to see all these people come together, like to help each other out because they all want to achieve the same thing, which is I want the best of both worlds. I want to save money but get the best parts for a PC build, but I love iOS, Mac OS software, and I want to make it happen, like kind of Frankenstein it, right? And
yeah,
and and people have made it work, and it's amazing.
yeah, and troubleshooting things isn't always a bad thing. I obviously learn a lot from doing that.
Yeah.
Once you learn, what's causing issues in your computer, and you start to get more control over it. So when it happens again or anything wrong happens, you're a little bit more confident about how to go about addressing these things. And the cool thing about having a built computer where it's a Hackintosh is you can actually go in there and diagnose things easier by testing RAM, power supply, swapping things out real easily.
Right, and then
If,
upgrade if you wanted to.
yeah, if your iMac Pro just stops turning on one day, you got to take it to Apple, and Apple's going to charge you an insane amount, and so you might just buy another one, but you might just
Unless you
be.
have Apple Care.
I've actually had an iMac just stopped working. We took it in and they said the logic board and the power supply died. It's going to be $1,200,
Oh
and,
man.
and the computer was $2,000. So,
Yeah.
and that put us down for 6 days while it was there. So that was
Right.
actually more time down than a Hackintosh, where I could have gone and diagnosed the issue myself, ran down to Mike Center, maybe grabbed a part, replaced it real easily, and
And
been
then
done with
move on
it.
with their
So,
life.
so yeah, if you learn those skills on how to build a computer, build a Hackintosh, and maintain it, I think long term you'll actually save a lot of time, you'll save a lot of money, and you'll have
Hmm.
some more skills in your pocket. You'll be a more valuable person.
And I think that is the biggest takeaway is becoming a valuable person. And then, the trade-off is there, right? When people ask of your service and you're knowledgeable in the field, they trust you because you have the experience. It really does pay off, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, last couple of questions here. Firstly, how has the coronavirus affected your work?
Luckily, not much.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Market Center the other day, and you had to wait for 40 minutes through a queue to get inside the store because they had a
Oh,
line out the door,
right.
and you'd sign up like through like an app. It was kind of really cool. They were limiting the capacity, but when I got in there, it was packed. And
Mm,
if you look at all the charts, the computer industry really, like if you look at fashion industry, it's destroyed. The
yeah.
service any service industry, it got really impacted a lot. But for the computer industry, actually everything is up, and
Right.
it's kind of intuitive to think why, because everyone's staying at home. They're investing in what they stay at home with. And that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
their computer. If they've ever put it off for a long period of time, they're now doing it. They're building their own computers, or they're buying a computer. They're getting into gaming. They're getting into
Yep.
working at home. Uh,
Yeah.
so everyone's investing in computer stuff. Uh, so sales actually, if anything, have gone up for the coronavirus. So thank God I'm in a good position.
For sure.
Uh,
And people still want to make their PCs look amazing and slick, so they come to you for
yeah,
that.
of course. The number one, we do have performance enhancing products too, but our number one sellers are the customization aspect of the aesthetics. And I believe, a lot of people want to express themselves. That's one of the ways to do it. When you're investing in your stay at home setup, and you want, art's a big part of that. You want your environment to be beautiful, customized,
Yep.
especially if you spend a lot of time there. So buying a $60 part that enhances that quite a bit has been a huge value for a lot of people. So
Mm.
I've been very blessed to be able to get that to anybody who needs it, and
That's
or
yeah.
just wants it. I shouldn't say need.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome though. That's really good
yeah,
that you've put yourself in that again that really specific niche where you would still be thriving, and that I think is awesome as a business, but also just for something to do.
yeah.
Um, Lastly, how do you think this experience of the pandemic, people staying at home, etc., is going to change your business moving forward, or will it?
I don't think. I mean, we're definitely like at the. We used to have a towel in the bathroom for washing after you wash your hands, and now we
Mm-hmm.
have paper towel dispenser
Nice.
because people didn't want to use the same towel everyone else is using. So little stuff like that, like we've gotten more hygienic on how we do things, and I think that's actually a good thing. Like we should have been that way before.
For sure.
It's kind of pushed us to start wearing gloves while packaging, and washing our
Mm-hmm.
hands more often, and
Are y'all
being more.
wearing masks at work?
Yeah. Yep. We got these little like me and Trevor have these like raver masks that we wear. Uh,
Nice.
they're like all starry and whatnot.
Of
Uh,
course.
yeah. So we've taken some fashion into it. We're a customization business. Like that's what we're about.
Of
But
course. Of course. That's
aesthetics,
awesome.
they look
That's
good.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um,
Bro, this has been amazing. Any last thoughts or comments? I mean, actually, one last question that does come to mind right now is, I mean, what do you say to anybody who is just starting to get into, like,
I would say just start doing it. You know, uh, when we were in high school, we were making videos on way shittier computers than the most basic thing they can get their hands on today, and that
mm-hmm,
was fine. Now on your phone, you can download some video editors and actually cut stuff up and add music,
Mm-hmm.
from any smartphone. $400 iPhone or Android phone will be able to edit 1080p footage on your phone. So I would say the number one thing is start creating content, make stuff, and don't think about what you have to make stuff. Just make stuff that you love, and then you'll just get into the other aspect of it over time, increasing it to just be able to do that better and faster. If you don't have a schedule, you don't care about, you're not being paid to render something in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You're not going to care how long things take. You're just going to want to do it. And then over time, as you get the budget for it, or as you get better at it, or as you get whatever, you can invest into making that better, and you'll know why you're doing it, and you'll have more of a drive to improve that aspect of your life too. You'll want to learn how to do better transitions, and learn more effects, and get more in depth with it. And so I think the number one thing for anybody who wants to do it is just to start doing it as at the minimum viable way you can.
For sure, for sure. That is amazing advice. Bro, thank you so much. I know we had a little bit of a late start, but we made it work with the technology. Um, and so I want to thank you again for taking the time to being on the show here on Real Time. It was great talking to you, and we will talk a little bit later.
Thank you, Mustafa. Have a good
All
one.
right. All right, y'all. So thank y'all for tuning in. I really hope y'all enjoyed this live stream of Real Time, where we are live talking about television and film and everything in between. And in today's case, we were talking about how to build the best PC for the bank and all the different intricacies about it. So again, thank you so much to V1Tech coming on and talking about it. I hope y'all enjoyed this live stream. If y'all did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure you hit that post notification down below so you know when we are live again here on Real Time. And until then, stay safe and we will see y'all in the next one. Peace out.